You're listening to What She Said on Canada Talks.
Kris Abel's Tech Tuesday segment, the reason we all look forward to Tuesday here at What She Said. I'm Sharon Caddy, Christine Bentley, Kris Abel's here, and yes, What She Says, Women in Tech and Science with our favorite gadget slinger, Kris Abel, is brought to you by 22B, official designers for Drift Innovation. Kris?
Hey, the last couple of weeks we've been following a really cool video series called The Portrait Project, in which action cameras have been handed to some really cool women around the world and used in a different way to express and share their lives. We've seen some pretty creative stuff. So this week, we actually have the artist behind that series,
That's cool.
Drew Henson, the man who came up with the whole project, from 22B Design, the design studio. And so he's here to tell us a little bit about the behind the scenes, how this whole process came about. So, Drew, good to have you here.
Thanks very much for having me. Essentially, because I've been designing cameras for drift now for almost 4 years. And when you're in the action sports market, you spend a lot of time watching people do backflips, a lot of time barrel rolls and the craziest of the crazy stunts. What you get to see, though, is that sometimes it only penetrates surface deep and to see what the actual physical world of what these characters are doing. And I wanted to tell more than that. I wanted to really capture the emotion, Certain people can do backflips better than others. Maybe it's because they got up earlier. Maybe it's because they have a more compelling story to tell. So we really wanted to try and capture and focus on the emotion behind it and really starting to tell some really unique and stories that I guess you could say are a little bit less mass-produced, a little bit more personal characters that you might see them every day, but you might not actually know what they're actually about. And so trying to get a spotlight on these women telling their inspirational stories.
So, there's two things that are sort of unique about your project. This technology is new technology, this whole category of action cameras. And you're right, there are lots of young, cool producers around the world. They're all trying to compete to see who can come up with the next creative idea using them. And most of them, they're doing things like they're putting the cameras on drones and putting them inside volcanoes, or it's all sort of sports and action related. And what you've set upon, an idea that nobody else seems to have hit upon yet, is the idea you can take that camera and instead of pointing it outwards at the landscape, at the views that are around you, you can actually turn it around and get just as interesting an introspective view of the person behind the camera, of your life. And you've done this. Most of the clips I've seen have been, jocks, dudes, bros, on their BMX bikes. You instead have decided to go after women.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. It shows lots of different possibilities we haven't seen anymore. So I guess help us understand, as a guy, what it is that's attractive to you in terms of finding women for this project, and in particular, you've defined them as being inspiring women. So tell us a little bit about the ladies that you've hooked up on this project, and what it is you find inspiring about them.
Absolutely. The original reason as to why I guess we sourced them out was we knew male population as a demographic was an easy catch for action sports. It's already there. And so I basically challenged the marketing team at Drift, and I challenged everybody on our team, what can we do to really expand that and get these cameras and get these devices into people's hands where we could start capturing a different side of the story. And that's kind of where the focus on women originated from. And then the actual inspirational women that we've come across are people that I've come across in my life that have either inspired me some way or another, or the actual work they do was just amazing, and I wanted to reach out to them to see if we could help capture it. When the devices are made, they're made as the most cameras that are versatile and able to capture very different positions, different mounts, different accessories. So it's a good device to get it kind of an all-around shot. And normally, obviously, you attach them to the action sports, but when you start doing things like taking the suction cup mount that you have for a car and you walk into a dance studio and you start putting them on the glass in front of the dancers, you start capturing things that you hadn't really considered before. But once you do it once, it's almost like it's almost addictive to start seeing all the different ways you can capture what makes people smile and what makes them drive and what makes them so happy to do what they do and wake up in the morning. And there's a difference between capturing them doing a spin and then capturing that glimmer of happiness in their eye when they capture that spin and that dance move exactly how they would have been battling for weeks to try and get it. And their creativity and their talent just kind of starts coming across. So today's release actually is Tiffany Newton. She is a gallerist who is definitely not your typical kind of even action that we were going with before. We had Portrait of a Dancer, we had Portrait of a Champion with Gabriela Sedesdos, who's a Spanish motocross driver. Yeah. But with Tiffany, for example, she's extremely inspirational in how she approaches life and how she approaches really trying to be the best in the world at what she does. She started off doing her master's in contemporary art at Sotheby's in London, then progressed to an internship at a gallery called Black Rat Projects, where they do phenomenal work out of London, working with artists like Banksy and Shepard Fairey from Obey, and Candace Tripp and Butch Anthony. And what we were able to realize is that if we give somebody a camera, and instead of saying, hey, we'll come shoot you, it's, we'll give you the gear so that you can shoot yourself and tell your own story how you want it to be told. And then we combine that with a bit of narrative where we ask them deeper questions about why they do what they do, why they love what they love. We were able to tell these compelling stories. And after the first couple of kind of pilot episodes, we realized this is actually something we really want to pursue and get behind and really tell these stories and try and get them out there, because at the end of the day, you never know who you inspire with them.
Right. Well, let's give everybody a sense of what we're talking about here. Here's a clip from the project's trailer.
I love what I do because it's artistic, it allows me to express myself.
You are going to be told no so much more than you are going to be told yes.
I wouldn't be where I am now if I wasn't around so many talented and ambitious people.
Luchan por lo que quieren realmente y que nada es imposible. Yo creo que con trabajo todo se consigue.
And it is amazing what you've done, because you're not the person behind the camera. That's what people have to really understand. You're taking people who are not by profession videographers. Their specialty is something else. They're dancers. They're BMX motocross athletes. And you're giving them complete control. You're handing them this specialized camera and asking them to record their life. So give us an understanding, because we've talked to a few people, Kristen and Plamel, and even though your clips are only just about 2.5 minutes, they actually represent a very long period of time that people are recording themselves. So to help us understand, let's pretend that Sharon there, she's my inspiring woman. Let's say that she's the next subject of your project. If you're, take us through how you set her up to be able to go through a recording process. You're handing her a camera. How long is she going to be recording your life? What kind of things does she need to know?
Absolutely. So what we usually say is we'll give you a camera, and it'll be about 3 weeks to 2 months. It's usually the timeline we allow the artist.
2 months. You up for that, Sharon?
Yeah. You're on.
All right.
I don't know if I'm exciting enough, but you're on.
Right. And because for me, my job is really in the design of the device. It needs to be a device that you're able to use easily and for every single situation. And then once I pass it to you, what we kind of try and convey is, you know, always have it on, record short clips. Because the nature of the edits we're putting out, it's going to be probably no little clip's going to be longer than 10 to 15 seconds.
Okay.
So what we would ask you to do is, you know, just authentically, as you go about your day, record as much as you can, little clips. Shaky cameras equal bad footage is something that we like to tell people. So we have them, you know, just little pointers like that. We teach them how to use the mounts and accessories. So we show you how to use like the drift monopod and the drift roll bar mount, or whichever ones were a bit specific to your trade.
And that's kind of what I find interesting, because you're asking people to go out onto the street, as some of them have, with these sort of harnesses on, that they've got a camera pointed at themselves. I mean, the footage, the resulting footage looks fantastic, but I'm hyper aware of the fact that as she's walking down the street, there are people probably staring, going, what's this weird kind of harness that she's wearing? Yeah, and so it's interesting that you're asking people to kind of record themselves, but to do so in a way that they're going to be very much aware of what they're doing. You're asking people to be courageous as well as being
absolutely
open. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the things is, oddly enough, a lot of the footage comes actually just from being handheld. If you get the camera just an arm's length away, oddly enough, with the wide-angle lens, you capture everything that you need to capture. So between that and the monopod, usually 90% of the footage, I would say, is just capturing it from putting it down over here, putting it down over here. Quick record,
I'm
turn it
curious,
off.
though, when you've set someone up with one of these cameras, do you find that the better footage comes after a certain period of time? Because at the beginning, is a subject more I don't know, overly aware of it, trying too hard?
Yeah, there's definitely a fear of, especially in our current day and age, of being perceived as exceptionally narcissistic. And as you walk around with the camera pointed outwards, you kind of don't get that critique. It's as soon as you have that camera pointed inwards, people might have that critique of you. But you get over it. You get over that fact, so that would be the first barrier, I think, to the recording process for an individual. And then the second one would probably just be using the camera. It's exceptionally easy to use, and it's designed that way. But anytime you're handed something new and you're unfamiliar, it's a little bit of a barrier. How does it work? How do I make it work? How do I get what I want out of it? So with that in mind, usually after 1 or 2 days, the comfort level is at a place where they're like, oh, this is actually easy. I can do this. And once they have that I can do this attitude, the footage just starts coming naturally.
Yeah, 'cause that would be the first thing I would think, is that in the beginning you'd be trying so hard, or overthinking maybe is the way to look at it.
And I think that's kind of the value of what Drew has hit upon here, because most of the time we see selfies, the still photos, and that's when somebody has complete control. And when we have control, we tend to want to project sort of perfection. I just woke up looking like this. Or, this grand thing I put together, it was easy. And I think what's great when you get into the video is that you relinquish a little bit of that control. You offer a little bit more intimacy in your life. And you're starting to show that you work hard for what you do. And your series does that. You're focusing on models, on actresses, people who are glamorous by their nature, but you've managed to get them to reveal sort of the toughness of what their job is. The fact that they have to hit the pavement every day and go to these little crappy rooms for auditions, or that they're having to change from one country to another, and it's always so very disorienting. And that's something that we have a tendency we don't want to show.
We don't see that part generally. We don't get to see that part. We just see the finished product, the part that's for public consumption. This is so cool.
Right. And actually that was something that we were hyper conscious of, and as candidates we heavily questioned whether we were going to include the models or not, just because on a surface level we didn't want people to have that perception of what it is without even having a chance to see it. And if it comes off as being portrait of a model, for me personally, I made it very clear to both of them, which I didn't have to make clear to the other girls, is that I'm intentionally making sure that this is just not going to be a story about a pretty girl. I want to tell you who you are and try and you're exceptionally beautiful, but I find you exceptionally beautiful on the inside, and that's the part that I'm trying to capture. And so hopefully that's what we're kind of coming across with.
Cool. Wow, that's exciting. I don't know if you want me to be a subject of this, but it's very cool.
No, but it's good to know what the people who are making these videos are going through, because we only see 2.5 minutes.
Right.
The best 2.5 minutes, of course.
Right.
But as everybody else is thinking, they might want to record their own videos. What's involved? How do you put it together? That's fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, and definitely, I mean, it's not going to lie, we have some fantastic help on the team, especially with the editing side. But I guess the real point is I wanted to let the world know it's with these devices and where they are now, anybody can capture their lives, and anybody can have that going forward. And whether you're a great editor or not doesn't change the fact that anybody can get great content.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're following the evolution of the selfie, and it's going to become less narcissistic, and it's going to be more about what's really involved in living your life.
Yeah, it's real. Now, if people want to learn more, where can they look online?
For 22B, which is TWENTY, the number 2, the letter B.ca, you can follow all of our projects there. If you want to know more about the camera, you can go on to driftinnovation.com. And we're rolling on. I mean, it's no secret that we go up against the Goliaths of the industry, but we're doing pretty well. As a company, Drift's been around for 8 years. I was previously their director of products, and now we handle all their designs from our firm. But there's basically information on both those places for anybody looking to get it.
You've been chasing innovation, and it's been fascinating to follow. I can't wait to see the next series. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much for having me.
Drew Henson, our guest, and Kris Abel, you're sticking around, right?
You got it.
Right on. What She Said's Women in Tech and Science with our favorite gadget slinger, Kris Abel, is brought to you by 22B, official designers for Drift Innovation.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.